Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers and listeners, Assalamu alaikum. Today's question is donating a human organ permissible in Islam? Well, like any other question, there are two schools of thought. One school of thought is, of course, opposing this very idea, and they believe that human beings should not be allowed to donate organs because this is something that is un-Islamic. On the contrary, there is another school of thought that believes that there is no harm in donating a human organ to save somebody's life. Anyway, before I move forward and quote relevant verses of the glorious Quran, that what is the guidance of the glorious Quran on this critical question. A related question is that what are the reasons and the occasions when a person may donate an organ? Well, in relation to reasons, one possibility is that somebody is donating an organ to save some near one and dear one's life. For example, husband donating organ to save the life of wife or of a child, and vice versa. On another occasion, somebody may be donating an organ just to save a human life purely on humanitarian grounds. For example, donating an organ to a stranger. Still, there could be another possibility where somebody is donating an organ to earn some profit out of it or for money consideration. We know that there are certain people who donate their organs like kidney, for example, or part of the liver to earn money. Probably they're in need of money and they do it. But ultimately the objective is to save somebody's life. So basically it works two ways. One person is earning money out of it by donating his or her organ, while the recipient is of course getting a lease of life. In this situation, the role of the intermediary becomes critical. Intermediary is an institution or individual who is connecting the donor with the recipient of the organ. And this intermediary could be a doctor, it could be an NGO, or it could be a hospital. So from practical perspective, it has been noticed that the role of these intermediaries in majority of the cases is unfortunately questionable, and it is never transparent. So what they do is they're going to charge a very low, they're going to pay a very low price to the donor of an organ. On the contrary, they charge a very exorbitant price from the recipient of that very organ. So in this way, basically they work as merchants and they're trying to multiply their wealth many times over. And we can say that they indulge in the practice of riba, that is multiplying one's wealth many times over through exploitative means, because they're exploiting the donor as well as the recipient of the organ. On the contrary, I mean, if the intermediary is transparent and he or she takes into confidence both the donor and the recipient that, okay, I'm going to charge this much for my services, and this is the price which I'm going to pay to the donor, and this is the price I'm going to charge from the recipient of that organ, then there is no harm in it. As verse 29 of chapter 4 of the glorious Quran reads, you believe, do not wrongfully consume each other's wealth, but trade by mutual consent. So in this case, there is mutual consent that the donor, the recipient, and the intermediary, all of the three parties through their mutual consent have agreed upon a price that will be exchanged between the donor, the recipient, and of course intermediary as part of fee for his services. Anyway, moving forward, what are the occasions when a person may donate an organ? So usually it may happen, or there could be two examples. One is that during one's life, somebody is donating an organ. We know that people may donate one of their two kidneys. At times they may offer part of their liver for transplant, and of course this is how it works. But in majority of the cases, people usually make a will that after their death some of their organs may be donated to a needy person. So these are the two ways whereby a person may donate his or her organs. Now, coming back to the question whether it is permissible in Islam or not, I'm going to quote verse 32 of chapter 5 of glorious Quran that reads, and if anyone saved a person, it is as if he saved the whole of mankind. Now this is very important. This verse simply informs us that saving a human life in the sight of Allah Almighty is tantamount to saving the whole mankind. So when you donate an organ, your intention is to save human life, and if this is your pure intention, then of course this is something that is a commendable act in the sight of God. Now, a related question may be that when you are going to save a person's life, how it's going to affect the life of whole mankind? When we understand that the person whose life is being saved, he will become the forefather of a long chain of lineal descendants if he or she survives. So in this way, you are not saving the life of one person. In fact, you are saving the lives of all his progeny and lineal descendants. So that's why in this context, Allah Almighty says in the glorious Quran that when you save the life of one person in the sight of Allah Almighty, this would tantamount to saving the whole mankind. Now, this verse of the glorious Quran is self-explanatory. It is crystal clear on this subject, but still, the critics of this approach put forward another verse of the glorious Quran, and then they try to support their claim that, okay, donating an organ is not permissible in Islam. So what that verse is, it is verse 119 of chapter 4 that reads, and I will prompt them to alter the creation of God. Basically, it is Satan who is making this claim. And the Lord Almighty says, whoever takes Satan as a Lord instead of God, he surely suffered a profound loss. Now, unfortunately, the critics are who offered this verse in support of their claim are quoting it totally out of context. In fact, this verse relates to something that to alter the creation of God for negative purpose. Basically, it is a satanic act. It has evil intentions. We know that. There could be different types of surgeries where people, change their sex for, enjoyment or allurement purposes. At times, they would reshape the size of their different organs for sex, pleasure, for enticement, and for other, evil activities. So in this context, if the objective of donating an organ or altering a human organ is basically for pleasure seeking, for enticing people to lure towards something that is a sin in the sight of Allah Almighty, some sexual drive, etc., etc., so probably that thing is definitely condemnable in the sight of God. And the very word, I will prompt them to alter the creation of God, this is the challenge of Satan. So Satan would always, lure mankind towards negative things. He would never, incline mankind, okay, you donate an organ or you make alteration to the creation of God to save somebody's life. So, this verse, those individuals who rely on this verse, pleading that donating an organ to save human life is totally out of context, and this verse has got nothing to do with the question under consideration. So the relevant verse is only that if somebody has saved one person's life, in fact, he has saved the life of whole mankind in the sight of Allah Almighty. And even, if somebody argues that I'm not going to donate an organ because I believe that it is not an approved act. So you may put this counter question that, okay, what's going to happen to your organ after your death? So definitely it will be buried with you and it will be decomposed in a short span of time. On the contrary, if you just donate it through your will, so it's going to save a person's life and thereby the life of whole of his lineal descendants. So just to cut it short, we can say that ultimately it's the intention that would determine whether an act is approved in the sight of God or otherwise. And since if we donate an organ and our intention is to save human life, it is a commendable act in the sight of Allah Almighty. It is permissible in Islam, and there is no harm in it. So I conclude my today's monologue with the prayer that Allah Almighty may bless this effort and enable us to apply reason and seek guidance only from the glorious Quran in all matters of life. So please do subscribe and share my channel for promoting teachings of the glorious Quran. May Allah Almighty reward your efforts. Amen. Thank you for watching.